Oh, week 17. Close games. Some letdowns, of course. Broncos still not in the playoffs going into week 18. Comes down to us versus the Chiefs, so we'll see what happens there. Most likely we'll play the Chiefs backups, but still gonna win. So we'll see what happens there. But hopefully everyone had a good holiday week and had a great time. But let's get into these games. First off, we're going to kick off Christmas morning, basically, with the Chiefs going to Pittsburgh. This was a pretty letdown of a game, in my opinion. I was bored pretty much the entire time. The Steelers just could not get anything going, but, it is what it is. It's just how the games go when you play the Chiefs, but the Steelers just couldn't get anything going at all. Like, the defense wasn't helping. The run game was, the only thing that was kind of working for them. But when you run the ball, obviously the clock goes down, and when your defense is letting up points, and then you can't score points offensively, you don't really want to run the ball. But just a kind of lopsided game. The Chiefs were always in control, moving the ball really effectively. 3 touchdowns from Mahomes, 320. The run game was actually held in check, for the Chiefs, but I don't know where the secondary was for the Steelers for this game, but either way, tough loss for the Steelers in terms of seeding, and this, win for the Chiefs allows them to really get some rest for their starters, so we'll see what happens there. Next, we have the Ravens going into Houston for back-to-back really boring games for Christmas. I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought this game was going to be a lot closer than, what it showed. I mean, I didn't have the Texans winning this game, but, for them to put up no offensive points is pretty insane to me. Lamar had a pretty average game. He didn't really do anything. He had 10 completions, 168 yards, and 2 touchdowns. C.J. Stroud had no touchdowns, a horrible pick, by the way. Derrick Henry just did pretty much whatever he wanted to. 147 and a touchdown, 5.5 yards a carry. Lamar, 87 and a touchdown. What else do you want them to do? It was just pretty pathetic, to be honest. 58 total rush yards for the Texans running attack there. Mark Andrews had a touchdown. Isaiah Likely had the other touchdown, his only catch of the day. Nico Collins, 59 yards. John Mechie III had 48 yards. Robert Woods had 21. And we're going to take a look to see what Deontay Johnson is probably going to do in the playoffs. I'm not sure if he's going to play next week in the finale. I feel like it would be kind of unnecessary for him to get reps with Davis Mills. But we'll see what that is going to look like there. But pretty much secures playoff seeding for the Texans and for the Ravens. So I think if they win or lose, it's not really going to impact anything seed-wise. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the Steelers game next week will have some significance there, but all these teams are still in the playoffs. So either way, it was just a huge letdown. Both of these games were just blowouts, not entertaining whatsoever. Not like the Thanksgiving games. The Thanksgiving games were amazing. These were just a complete waste of time. Oh, you thought we were done with these bad games? Well, that was on Wednesday. The very next day, we had the Seahawks going into Chicago, where there was 9 total points scored. We had Geno Smith throwing 160, Caleb Williams throwing 122 and a pick. 122 total rushing yards for the Seahawks, 103 yards total yards rushing for the Bears. This game was just defensive all the way up until the very end. No one scored in the second half. That's how boring it was. The Seahawks, did what they needed to do. This potentially might secure them a playoff spot. We'll see. And then the Bears, just another pathetic performance. on primetime. So we'll see what happens to both these teams next week on how seeding works and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just pathetic. This is just a pathetic performance by both. I just don't understand, how they can keep putting these primetime games. This has to be a game you flex. You just can't have a game like this in primetime on Thursday night. No one probably watched the second half. Why would you want to watch a 6-3 game? It's just I don't understand what these primetime games this week were. This was just downright pathetic, completely boring, useless to watch, and just that's really bad, especially on holiday week. Oh, you thought we were done with the bad games? No. This leads all the way up until Saturday at 3:30. The 12 o'clock game where the Chargers going into New England to absolutely massacre them. Justin Herbert, 281, 3 touchdowns. Drake May, 117 and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins, 76 and a touchdown for his first game back. And 96 total yards for the Patriots running back room. Demario Douglas, 1 touchdown. And Ladd McConkey had 94, 2 touchdowns. Should have had 3 touchdowns on a really bad miss overthrow by Justin Herbert. Quentin Johnson, 48. And Darius Davis had the other touchdown. Either way, not a lot to touch on this game. The Patriots had one good drive in the entire game. 3 quarters scoreless. Touchdown in each quarter for the Chargers there. And just a complete blowout at home. And I don't know what's going to happen with the coaching staff with the Patriots. We'll see. But this Chargers victory here pretty much cements their playoff spot. And I don't think it's really going to move. But we'll see. But yeah, tough loss for the Patriots. For Saturday night, we did have the Cardinals going into LA. This was a close game. It felt like you didn't really know what team was going to win, just kind of like until who had the last possession. Kyler Murray had a great game, yards-wise, 321. Threw 2 really bad picks. Also had a touchdown. Michael Carter taking in a majority of the reps in this game, 70 yards. Matthew Stafford, 189. No touchdowns, no picks. Kyron Williams, 56 and a touchdown. Puka had 129. Cooper Kupp only had 1 catch. This was a very defensive game, but like a big play offensive type game. There was just like a big play here or there that both teams were kind of making, but ultimately the Rams defense just kind of held their own and are a sleepy 10-6 team. I think they should not be in the playoffs just by the way they've been playing this year, but hey, they snuck in. When you're in, you're in. Like, you have a chance. So we'll see what they do in the playoffs, but Cardinals, I think this is an elimination game, so it looks like they are out. We will see if they will play their starters in Week 18 in a pretty meaningless game, so we'll see. Next, we had the Jets going into Buffalo. Pretty much everyone had this game going the way it did. Aaron Rodgers, 112, no touchdowns and 2 picks. Josh Allen, 182, 2 touchdowns. James Cook, 53 and a touchdown. Josh Allen also had a rushing touchdown. Breece Hall has 45 total yards, 112 for the whole Jets running room. Garrett Wilson, 66 and a touchdown. Tyler Conklin had the other touchdown. Tyrell Shavers had a 1 long 69-yard touchdown. Amari Cooper had the other touchdown on an amazing catch. Keon Coleman had the other touchdown, but this was just a defensive game. They ended up getting a safety on the Jets. This was just a all-around really great performance by the Bills to a division rival. Are the Jets good, though? No. But it was a complete team victory. The Jets had pretty much garbage time points. 14 points on soft zone defense in the fourth quarter. But up until then, it was 33, to 0. So it was a pretty solid performance by the team there. And, the Jets are just a dumpster fire at this point. I'm not really sure what the team is going to do. Their team is all over the place, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next, we had the Raiders going into New Orleans. Ended up beating the Saints and hurting their draft stock. So Aiden O'Connell had a pretty decent game, 242, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Spencer Rattler, I don't know if it's just like him being a rookie or just the amount of trash players the Saints have on their backups right now, but he had 218, a touchdown, and 2 picks, but couldn't really do anything just because he's a rookie, not really that good right now, plus there's no one around him that is going to help him out. Amir Abdullah, 115, had a great stretch of like 3 games recently. So he's been pretty solid, but he's, pretty old. I think they might give him like a 1-year contract, but he doesn't probably have that much left in the tank. A lot of guys, were not playing this game. So we'll see what happens there. But Spencer Rattler also was a leading rusher for the Saints. Alvin Kamara did not play this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a lot of people don't realize that he was on the roster. He had 20 yards, and Jamal Williams only had 12. I feel like Jamal Williams is getting the really bad end of the stick. He should be on a team where they actually give him the football. I'm not really sure why the Saints are not really utilizing him that much, but that kind of sucks, and it's a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Brock Bowers continues to just get receptions. He's pretty much the only target that they're, really utilizing, him and Jacoby Myers. So once the Raiders kind of get some more guys around, I'm pretty sure that his, catch rate is going to go down a little bit. But he's there. He's healthy every week. He's getting catches. He's putting up, fantasy points for anyone who has him. And yeah, he helped them win this game and hurt the Raiders' draft stock for the future. So that's always great to see. It's always great to see. Juwan Johnson, 66 yards, and Foster Monroe, 47 yards and a touchdown. You can see where kind of Spencer Rattler's game plan is and who his safety nets are. It's the tight ends. They don't run long routes. But yeah, they had 15 total targets, So we'll see what happens with the Saints' future. But yeah, the Saints roster right now it's not good. Not good at all. So we'll see what happens when the starters get healthy next year and what changes they'll make, but they're not a contender at any time soon. Next, we had a shootout in New York for a pretty wild game against 2 quarterbacks, ex-teammates, Joe Flacco and Drew Lock, which is pretty ironic, I feel like. Joe Flacco, 330, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Not a great game. Drew Lock, on the other hand, 17 for 23, 309, 4 touchdowns, no picks. This is exactly the type of game that left Bronco fans like myself wondering what if, if Drew Lock had a great coaching staff around him, didn't have his entire team falling apart with injuries and not having an extremely tough schedule, plus being in COVID year, Drew Lock was pretty much in an impossible situation to succeed. And it just wasn't fair, in my opinion, that what we did to him in Denver there. But, look at the type of game he can put up. The Colts don't have a great defense, I will say that. But for him just to go out there and score 5 total touchdowns, no quarterback is outside of Burrow, Josh Allen, maybe Russell Wilson, I think, this year. What other QB has done that this year? This was a great game by Drew Lock and, ultimately hurting the Giants, but man, was this an entertaining game. Jonathan Taylor, 125 and 2 touchdowns. Once again, the only running back getting carries. He had 32 total carries, getting the bell cow load. Teron Tracy, 59 on 20 carries. Drew Lock, like I said, had that other rushing touchdown at the goal line. Alec Pierce had a nice 49-yard catch. He also had a touchdown. Michael Pittman, 109 yards and a touchdown. Malik Neighbors, 171, 2 touchdowns, 24 yards a carry, 7 catches out of 8 targets. Wandale Robinson, 71 and a touchdown. Darius Slayton also had a 32-yard touchdown. This was just a very entertaining game, garbage time game. No one's going to go to the playoffs here. And this was just a really back and forth, really awesome game. Ultimately, the Giants were the ones who kicked the Colts out of the playoffs. The Colts had a very slim chance, but they had to beat the Giants in order for that to even have a chance. And the Giants just straight up said, no, you're not going to make the playoffs this year. So that was pretty cool. But either way, great game with Drew Lock. And let's see what happens with the Giants draft stock after this week. Next, we had the Cowboys going into Philadelphia for a complete blowout. I'm not really going to touch a lot on this game. Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee just completely destroyed the Cowboys. 197, 3 total touchdowns, no picks. Cooper Rush, 147, a touchdown and 2 picks. Rico Dowdle, 104. Saquon had 167, getting really close to breaking that record. May or may not play next week. We'll see. If he does, he most likely will get it. If he doesn't, then I believe he falls like to 8th or something like that. But yeah, Brandon Cooks, 52 yards, and Jalen Tolbert had the lone touchdown. Devontae Smith had a great game, 122 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, 36 and a touchdown as well. Either way, the completely defensive and offensive domination for the Eagles. And, the Cowboys just completely couldn't do anything. So, the Cowboys are obviously out of the playoff race at the moment. So, we'll see what they do next week if they actually play their starters, if they try to win. We'll see if they save their draft stock or not. But big one for the Eagles, and it looks like they might be playing for the 2 seed here, depending on how the Lions and Vikings play out. Next, we had the Panthers going into Tampa Bay. This game was also a blowout. The Panthers defense just did not show up. The Bucs were just kind of doing pretty much whatever they wanted. Bryce Young still had a decent game, 203, 2 touchdowns. The 0 run game for the Panthers. Baker had 359, 5 touchdowns. Bucky Irving, 113, and Rashad White only getting 30. Adam Thielen had 2 touchdowns, 110. Mike Evans, 97 and 2 touchdowns. We'll see if he continues to have that 1,000-yard season record streak going. And Jalen McMillan also had 2 touchdowns, with Payne Durham getting the last touchdown there. Nothing really to touch on this game. Just a big blowout home win for the Buccaneers here. Next, we have the Titans going into Jacksonville. Pretty close game. Pretty boring game. Nothing really to go off of here, but Mason Rudolph, 193, a touchdown and a pick. Mac Jones, 174, 2 touchdowns, had a pretty decent game. Tajay Spears, 95 yards. Probably the best game of his career. Well, second best, I guess. Travis Etienne, 49, and pretty much everyone else, following in. Calvin Ridley, 84 yards. Brian Thomas Jr., 91 and a touchdown. And Parker Washington had another touchdown as well. This was a pretty straightforward game. The Jaguars always felt like they were kind of in control. But, it's just a divisional game, garbage time game. This probably had the least viewered amount, just because both of these teams have absolutely nothing to win for. But, big division win, I guess, for the Jags. A win either way here hurts the team. So, this was just a complete garbage time game. Next, we have the Dolphins going into Cleveland. The Browns really needed to win this game for the Broncos' help, at least. Tyler Huntley, 225, a touchdown, no picks. DTR had 170 and a pick. Pretty boring game. Neither team was doing pretty much anything offensively. Just getting enough to actually just win the game. But, the Browns couldn't really get anything going on the run. They couldn't really do anything in the air. Going for it, not converting, defense playing horrible. The Dolphins just honestly played just a casual game, and they ended up winning the game. So keeping their playoff hopes alive. So we will see what happens next week, if they get in or not. But if the Dolphins get in, that is by far the worst possible option for the last seed in the AFC. Next, we had a big division game with the Packers going to face the Vikings. Jordan Love, 185, a touchdown, no picks. Sam Darnold, 377, 3 touchdowns and 1 pick. Josh Jacobs, 69 and a touchdown. Emmanuel Wilson, 29 and another touchdown. The run game for the Vikings this week could not get anything going. Justin Jefferson, 92. Jalen Naylor, 81 and a touchdown. Jordan Addison, 69 and a touchdown. Romeo Doubs, 58, led the team in yards. Tucker Kraft had 53. This was just a back and forth type of game. Good defense both sides. Pretty entertaining on the offense. One team could get the pass game going. One team could get the run game going. So it was a good mix. But ultimately, the Vikings did come out and took this win at home. We'll see how they do against the road next week against the Lions. But this was a close game, good division game. So we'll also see if the Packers play their starters next week because they also have a secured spot. And I don't really know if seeding will matter for them for next game if they win or lose. So either way, a big division win for the Vikings and tough loss for the Packers. Next we have Sunday night, which was a pretty entertaining overtime game between the Falcons and the Commanders. Michael Penix, 223, a touchdown and a pick. Jayden Daniels, 227, 3 touchdowns and 1 pick. Bijan, 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jayden Daniels, 127. And Brian Robinson had 60. Chris Rodriguez also had a touchdown. Drake London, 106. Kyle Pitts had 44 and a touchdown. Zacchaeus had 85 and a touchdown. And Zach Ertz had 2 touchdowns. Zach Ertz has really became alive and kind of reborn again, I would say, in this Commanders offense. He's really blossomed, I feel like, in the second half of the season and became a pretty reliable target for Jayden Daniels. This came down to the very end, obviously, and the Commanders were just able to kind of just drive down to the end zone in the overtime time window there and just kind of easily won. It was close all the way up until, overtime. The Commanders just had a lot of momentum. The offense was just clicking, and you kind of knew if they won the coin toss, they were just going to go down and win the game, and that's exactly what happened. So a tough loss for the Falcons. I believe this kicked them out of the playoff contention, and the Commanders, I think solidified their playoff seeding spot. So, yeah, big win for the Commanders there. Next, we had the Lions going into San Francisco for a game that I thought was going to be a complete blowout. But Jared Goff, 303, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Brock Purdy, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 377. Jahmyr Gibbs, 117 and a touchdown. Isaac Guerrero, 34. And the rest of the 49ers running attack was just non-existent this game. Jameson Williams, 77 and a touchdown. Sam Laporta had a touchdown with 64 yards. Amon St. Brown, 60 and a touchdown. Ricky Pearsall, 141 and a touchdown. George Kittle, 112. A lot of, offensive play here. No defense was really played on either side, but ultimately the Lions, just their attack was just a little bit too strong for the 49ers and just were able to kind of get the dub there. But big win for the Lions to move closer to that 1 seed and, 49ers, another tough loss. Next we have the Broncos going into Cincinnati. Pretty much the last game of the week. This is just a heartbreaking loss for the Broncos. Bo Nix had a pretty decent game. 219, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Had actually a great game. Joe Burrow had 412, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Also had a great game. Jaleel McLaughlin got a majority of the carries, had 69 total yards rushing. Chase Brown had 67. Ended up getting hurt at the very end of the game, which would have ended the game if he did not get hurt. So that was pretty insane to do, which ended up, making the clock stop. We get the ball back with about a minute 12 and a timeout. And we go down and score a miraculous 30-yard touchdown to Marvin Mims, double-teamed in the end zone. But, ultimately, obviously, the Bengals won in overtime. They did win the coin toss. I'm not really sure why we didn't go for 2 there, but it is what it is. I would have went for 2. We had the momentum at that particular time. Our defense was not being able to stop the Bengals offense the entire game. I'm not really sure why you would want a 50% chance, risk that to go, into overtime right there. But, yeah, even in overtime, we had some other opportunities, and we still didn't execute on any of those. So we gave them multiple opportunities on offense, and they ended up closing the win out. T. Higgins absolutely torched us. He had 12 total targets, 131, 3 touchdowns. They were pretty much passing every single play. It was very annoying. Very boring offense, a lot of short routes. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase had a total of 27 targets, which is insane, in my opinion. Mike Gesicki had 12 as well. But yeah, this was just a tough loss for the Broncos. Now we have to go into Week 18 to face the Chiefs backups to see if we can get in. And if we don't win, and the Bengals also win next week, then they get in the playoffs and we don't. So it comes down to just us two. We'll see who gets in, but it's up to us. We'll see what happens. Next, we have Week 18 picks of the week. We have the Browns going into Baltimore. And for this game, I do have the Ravens winning that. Next, we have the Bengals going into the Pittsburgh. I do have the Bengals winning that game. I really hope the Steelers win so we can make the playoffs, but we'll see. But I do have the Bengals winning that game. Next, we have the Panthers going into Atlanta. I have the Falcons winning that game. Next, we have the Commanders going into Dallas. I do have them winning, the Commanders winning that game. This is also a difficult week to pick because a lot of people don't really know who's going to be playing, who's not, who's going to be sitting, who's hurt. It's kind of random. Next, we have the Bears going into Green Bay. I have the Packers winning that. Texans going into Tennessee. I have the Texans winning that game. Jaguars going into Indianapolis to face the Colts. I have the Colts winning that. Bills going into the New England to face the Patriots. I have the Patriots winning this game. I feel like a lot of the starters for the Bills are not going to be playing that game, but we'll see. The Giants going into Philadelphia. I do have the Giants winning that game. I feel like the Eagles are going to have a lot of backups. And, the Giants coming off of a great game offensively, so we'll see. Saints going into Tampa Bay. I have the Buccaneers winning that game. Chiefs heading into Denver. Denver is wearing their throwback uniforms at home. Playoff or bust. I feel like we have to win this game regardless of who's out there, so picking the Broncos. Chargers going into Las Vegas. I have the Chargers winning that game. Seahawks going into LA to face the Rams. I have the Seahawks winning that. Dolphins going to New York to face the Jets. I do have the Dolphins winning that game. I have the Jets winning the game. I feel like a lot of the Dolphins starters are not going to be playing. So hopefully that's the case. 49ers going into Arizona to face the Cardinals. I do have the Cardinals winning that. Vikings going into Detroit on Sunday night. Probably one of the game of the weeks. I do have the Vikings winning that game. I feel like they're just on a little streak right now. So either way, I will see y'all in my next video for Week 18, and we will see who is in the playoffs officially, and we'll see what this card looks like. Till then, I will see you on my next video.